All right, we're here. We're back.
Hey, everybody.
So I'm here with Corvin, who was not here last week, and Corvin's going to help with the next step of this process of developing a theme for concrete5. So last week we had Franz and Evan on the show to talk about how we would approach the theme and divide it up into different blocks and sort of the things you might want to consider as far as the end user. We spent a lot of time, Corvin, just catching you up on thinking about how the end user would actually use the theme and sort of the level of sophistication we might expect of the end user and how that might actually inform some of the design decisions. So for example, I'm sure you're aware from your experience, if you expect the end user to always follow a certain structure in a content block with having a specific header followed by an order list or something, that oftentimes they're not going to be able to do that over time, and then the block just degrades because of the expectations meeting reality. So as a result of the previous episode, we came up with a technical overview of work, which we've fleshed out and added to a public repository on GitHub. And I'm going to paste that into the Learning Concrete5 Slack channel. So if you're following along today and want to ask any questions or get any of the links to the stuff we're going to talk about today, please check that Learning Concrete5 channel in the Concrete5 public Slack, and we'll be monitoring that for questions or comments as we go along. So I just pasted in the link to the TAO, which was produced at the last session, and I've got Corvin here with me today, who's going to help take us through sort of how we would approach this from the development side of things, starting off with sort of the files you'd want to start with to sort of bootstrap the whole process. And then I think we're looking at headers and footers and page types today. Is that right, Corvin?
Yeah, not quite page types, but page templates.
Page templates,
we'll get those things built out.
Okay, cool. So if we look here in the repository, I'll put another link here into the Slack channel. So this is the root of the theme. We're calling it Theme Dreamers because it was a theme called Dreamers, I believe. Mm-hmm. So we're calling it Theme Dreamers for now. If you look at the root of the repository there, it looks like you've added a whole bunch of files out of nowhere just an hour ago. Where did all these files come from?
Yeah, these are all just a new project created with the concrete5 Composer tool. So if you're curious how that started and how you get started with concrete5 Composer, take a look at one of our earlier episodes. We dive in pretty deep and get started with a new concrete5 site just based on a Composer repo. So yeah, that's what I've done. I've just followed those steps from that video and done almost nothing to the code. The only thing I've really touched in here is I've added that technical outline of work. Yeah.
Okay, so just to clarify, these are the same steps you would go through when you're installing concrete5 with Composer, is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Those are the steps that I took. I ran the Composer Create project with concrete5 Composer, and then I just ran the install. That's all.
Okay, so there's nothing special that we need to do just because we're going to be creating a theme. We're just starting with sort of a base install.
Everything special that we need to do, we're going to do today. So some of the things that we'll have to set up, like, the theme boilerplate files and stuff like that, that's going to be the first stuff we jump into.
Okay, cool. So looking at this technical overview of work here, what's the first thing we're going to work on here? You said page templates.
Yeah, we're gonna take the HTML template that was given to us by the ColorLib. I guess wasn't given to us, but we have taken from the ColorLib open source stuff. We're gonna take that raw HTML and we're gonna turn that into something that you can install on a concrete5 site. And hopefully at the end of this episode, what we'll have is a homepage template that it's not going to look like the template, not 100%, and then an interior page template. So that's the plan for today.
Okay, cool. How should we get started? Let's just dive in.
Sure.
So I have been learning a little bit about how to do overrides and stuff, but if I'm just starting from scratch, I really have no idea sort of what the first step would be.
Yeah, so concrete5 gives you 100% control of your front end. So none of the things that we're going to do today are going to be overrides. What we'll do today will be a brand new theme. So it's not going to be overriding anything that exists. It's going to be just completely new. And then any kind of templates that we make are going to be selectable and not quite overrides. So the first thing that we're going to do, if you can see my screen, is
I can.
sweet. All right. So I have the Dreamers theme here in a directory. This is probably far too small.
Yeah, the font. I was going to say the font size is a little on the small side.
Presentation mode.
Ooh, there you go.
Cool. That's a little bigger. Yeah.
Much nicer. Yeah.
Okay, feel free to shout in the Learning Concrete5 channel if this is still too small. I think I might be able to make these bigger. Okay, so I have the HTML template just in a subdirectory under my Concrete5 Composer project. This hasn't been committed up to Git. I guess we could commit it to Git. What do you think about that, Mike?
It might be nice just to see, all sides of the story, where we're coming from and where we're going.
Fair enough. All right. Well, I'll get that added here in a second once I just accidentally put my computer to sleep. So now that I'm back, did my screen share go away?
Yeah, we're looking at your smiling face right now.
All that convenience.
There you go.
Okay. Sweet. Is that working?
Yep, we're looking at your IDE right now.
So I'm not going to fuss with that right now, but we will get this Dreamers directory committed up to that Git repository just so that you guys can see what we started from. If you guys want to follow along for this episode, if you head over to the repository that Mike, I guess Mike already linked to it. But if you head into the repository, the Theme Dreamers repository, there's a link right here, Dreamers theme. So if you click on that, you should be able to download just the theme right here. It's open source, but it is, and I can't remember what the Creative Commons. It's Creative Commons, which means that you have to keep attribution for this theme in the footer. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so one of the things that this theme comes with is not just CSS, but this actual Sass that was used to build the theme. And so the first thing that I want to do is I want to make sure that we have this Sass available to use in our theme. So what that entails is just I just need to make sure that we have the ability to take all this stuff and turn it into whatever it needs to turn into over here. Thankfully, some of these things are static. They're just kind of dependencies that are being pulled in. And most of them we have just parallels in the core to use. But some of them are built just with these CSS files. The way that we're going to know what's built with what is we can just look at this style.map file. And in here it shows us, hey, all these files compiled into this style.css. Yeah, and that's all we have. The rest of them seem like they're static. So we're just going to go with this. And since this is a Concrete5 Composer-based repository, it comes equipped with the Laravel Mix compilation library. So we can compile this stuff just with no extra work here, hopefully. So let's take a look at doing that. So we're going to open up this webpack.mix file. And in here, we can see there's some boilerplate already. It's kind of crowded in here. This stuff right here is going to give us some information. It's like some just embedded documentation. So I'm going to get rid of that. And up here is an attribution. So I'm just going to leave that. Okay, so we know that we're not actually compiling less CSS. So this example isn't super helpful for us. Thankfully, the syntax with Laravel Mix is extremely simple. All we have to really do is tell it, use a Sass file instead, or use Sass instead. So the way that looks is we add a new line here, and we're just going to say .sass, and we're going to tell it a path to our file. This is still in the streamers repositories, or in this directory, so I'm going to move that out. So I've just copied this Sass directory. I'm going to head into my resources directory and just paste it there. Sweet. I don't need to add it to Git right now. Okay, head back to where we were at. Okay, so now what I can do is I can just tell this to take one of those Sass files and compile it into a CSS file. So we're going to say resources Sass, and we're going to say just style.css, or style.scss rather. And we're going to push that to public/applications. Actually, let's just leave it in public for now, just to make sure this is going to work for us. I'm going to get rid of this other stuff that we're no longer going to need. And I've saved this. So wish I could view my terminal in presentation mode, but I can't, so we're going to use something else. Watch how long it takes for my terminal to start up. Yay. Okay.
I would love to watch, but it's really small.
Okay. We'll get that. We'll get it bigger.
Fine. There you go. Now we can see.
All right. Let me actually full screen this. That's not what I wanted at all. Okay. So we're going to head into our directory here. All right. So we are in that Dreamers theme directory. This is just the root of our project that we were looking at a second ago. So if I list out the files in here, we'll see we have our composer JSON file. We've got our public directory and that webpack.mix file we were just messing with. I'm realizing at this moment that I haven't installed my node dependencies, so we're going to have to sit and watch that happen. So bear with me as this, we let Yarn install all of our stuff.
So these node dependencies are, like, for example, the Sass compiler. Is that the dependencies?
Yeah, to a large degree, yes. So my understanding of how Laravel Mix works is as you compile these things, if it realizes you need something in order to compile something, it will add it to your dependencies automatically.
Oh, okay.
And so we might not pull down Sass just yet.
Okay.
But we'll see what happens.
So while we're waiting for that, if anyone has any questions for Corvin, go ahead and type them in the Learning Concrete 5 channel. I don't think we've covered anything particularly confusing yet, but who knows?
Sweet. And it just took 59 seconds. All right. So let me clear this. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the development build. So with the composer-based concrete5, there's a few different NPM scripts that come with it. So if you're not familiar with NPM scripts, let's head back to PHP Storm. In our package.json file, we've got a whole bunch of these scripts written down, and they've got this long command that doesn't make any sense just looking at it. But what you need to know is that, you can build for dev, you can build for production, you can do watch polling, or you can build hot. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to at first build with dev, because we're not entirely sure that this is going to build. So we're going to do yarn dev, see what happens. Yeah, see, so it says additional dependencies must be installed. So it's running yarn add Sass loader. So
Okay.
it's automatically pulling down the Sass compiler that we need to be able to compile this stuff.
That's really convenient.
Sweet. Okay, so it pulled down the dependency, but it doesn't look like it actually built our Sass file. So let's run that again. Error. Let's see. Can't resolve resource. That's my problem. I named it resource rather than resources. See, our directory here is resources, and in my webpack file, I accidentally put resource. So let's change that. Head back, try again.
There we go.
Maybe.
So just to clarify, these SAS files came directly from the theme. They're not, we're not incorporating any SAS files from the base concrete5 installation, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, so it's complaining that it's not able to find the images that are being included in this SAS file. So I think that's an easy fix. If not, we'll end up just giving up on this. But yeah, I think we can just copy the images and maybe fonts out of here
Probably.
into resources just so that it has those available. And no, I don't want to add those right this second. Oops. Let me clear. We're going to run yarn dev again. Now, if I had done the watch polling, it would make this process much more tedious. So that's why we started with dev. And nice. So it's got this stuff compiled. What's interesting is it didn't just create the style.css file, but it also created image files. And it gave them some kind of cache busting value in there. So let's take a look and see what actually was built. So we told it to build into public. So what we should see is public, and we do style CSS. Nice.
Looks like there's also a new images folder in public as well.
Yes. Right? Yep. There's now this new images folder. And if we look in here, everything is pointing to that images folder. Now, of course, we don't want this to be where we keep our style.css. So I'm just going to delete this stuff for now. But we know that that compiles, and we know that we're able to use those SAS files when we need to. So the next step is to start building out our theme. So the first thing that I'm going to do before I do that is I'm going to prove that I have this site installed. This is the website that we were just looking at. So if I go to dreamers/dreamers or dreamers, what we should see is very slowly loading this HTML for some reason. Well, this is
that is quite slow.
That's odd. Well, so this is the actual Dreamers theme. So this is what we were looking at in that template. So this is the same site we were just looking at in PHP Storm, just installed with no content.
Okay.
So if we head over to the themes dashboard page and look around, we're going to see, again, somehow very slowly, there we go. We're going to see that the Elemental is the only theme installed, and Elemental is the theme that comes with concrete5 out of the box. So what we need to do is we need to get a new entry in here somehow.
Yeah, this is the part that's a mystery to me.
Yeah, so this is an example of one of the ways that concrete5 just has these implicit loading registration methods. So rather than actually going in and saying, hey, concrete5, I've got a new theme for you, you just create the theme in the right spot, and concrete5 just kind of knows to look there. So I'll show you how that actually works. So we're going to head into public, and then application, and then themes. We aren't doing this in a package right now, but we'll likely circle back and make this a package later.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new directory, and I'm going to call it Dreamers. And then in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new page theme class. So I know things about this page theme class because I've done this once or twice. Actually, I think this might be the wrong name. So I've done this once or twice, but not enough to know if this is the right name. What I do when I'm confused about these kinds of things, and I'm not sure, is I go into the concrete directory, into themes, and then I go and look at Elemental. So if we look at Elemental, yeah, it's not page theme capitalized, it's page_theme. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually just going to copy Elemental's version, delete my crusty old broken thing, and replace it with what's in Elemental. Of course, this isn't what we want. This isn't going to work. So we need to do some cleanup on this before we actually try to use it. But this gets us started. So the first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that our namespace is actually what we want. Obviously, we're not in the concrete directory, and we're not the Elemental theme. So both of those things are wrong. for this file, the application themes directory, what we would do is we would use the application theme namespace and then pass that. So it's instead of concrete theme, we're just changing this one segment to application. And then instead of elemental, since we named ours Dreamers, we'll just call it Dreamers. Sweet.
Those are the only places you need to make changes for the name?
For the namespace.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, not for the name. We'll get to that in a second. So
okay.
This class is extending another class called theme. Some of these things, some of these methods are just coming down from theme. Some of them are being overridden. Some of them are required in order to implement this interface. So in PHP Storm, I'm able to tell just at a glance what's what. I can tell that this is overriding an existing method because I got this blue circle here. And since I don't need any of this content, I'm just going to get rid of this whole method.
Okay.
We know that we're going to be using this theme grid framework of Bootstrap 3, so I'm just going to keep that. Theme name, I know I need that. That's going to be Dreamers. And you can tell that's got a green over here. So what that means, what that tells me is that there's no implementation. If I actually click on this, it's going to take me to the theme provider interface where, you know, this doesn't have an implementation until I make it. So we're going to name that Dreamers. We're going to call it Portland Labs Dreamers theme based on colorlib Dreamers. Same thing here. I don't need theme block classes right this second. I don't need theme area classes. I don't need default block templates. I don't need responsive image maps. And I don't need theme editor classes. Now this last thing, you can tell it's got a green dot over here, which means I can't just get rid of it. In fact, just to prove that, if I get rid of this, you'll see PHP Storm says, hey, you know, this thing is busted. And it tells me, hey, you got to implement that method. So adds it back. Nice. So instead of actually deleting it, I'm just going to delete the content and I'm going to make sure it returns what it's supposed to return, an array. Okay. So just by making this Dreamers directory and making a well-formatted page theme class, now if we go back to our dashboard here and refresh, we should see, and we do, we see our Dreamers theme ready to be installed.
Nice.
Now, I don't want to install this just yet, just because we don't have anything in there. But we do have the base stuff, and we do know that we can install this when we're ready. The things that I want to get implemented before we install are just those 2 page templates. And the only reason for that is if we add those page templates after we install, we have to go back and reinstall the page templates and stuff like that. So what we're going to do first is we're going to make sure that those CSS files that we're building are going to the right place. So in order to do that, I'm going to close up all this stuff so I save some space. I'm going to head into webpack.mix.js, and I'm going to change this from resources stas. Or rather, I guess I'm not changing this. This is going to stay the same as resources sas style.scss. But instead of going into public, I'm going to go into public application, themes, and Dreamers. So now saving that, we can head back to our terminal and yarn dev.
So this is just doing the same thing, but the target location is different.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so you'll see now that these things have been added to application themes Dreamers. Interestingly, it looks like the images might not have been. Let's check that out. Yeah, it looks like the images were still added to this public directory. And I'm not sure that that's what we want. And I'm not sure 100% how to fix that right this second. Maybe it's
the public path.
Yeah, that might be the issue. Let's just try it. Try it and see. Let's delete these.
So maybe you could explain a little bit on if they were in the public path, since it is the web root, they would be available. But why do we want to keep them inside of the theme directory?
Well, there's honestly not much reason. The main reason why we're wanting to keep this stuff kind of contained within the theme directory is just so that it's packaged and easy to move into something that we can put up into the marketplace later.
Oh, I see. Keep
There's
it nicely together. Okay.
there's absolutely no reason why we couldn't just have the images or even like the CSS at the top of the project. And some people prefer that.
Hmm.
You know, that can make it so that your theme path doesn't get divulged, or your theme handle and stuff like that. So there is reasons why you might want to have it at the root. But for us, the reason why we're packaging stuff into that theme directory is so that we can kind of package it up easier later.
Okay.
Okay, so we ran that again. We didn't get the image directory, and we don't have a style.css. So I think we're doing okay so far. We're going to head into themes, dreamers, and yep, we've got our style and our images. Nice. Last thing I'm going to do, I don't actually want this to go into the root. I'm going to put this in a CSS directory. And honestly, most of the stuff that we have in the CSS directory needs to be copied over there too. So I'm going to copy that. This is from the HTML template that we downloaded. There's still some CSS files in there that aren't getting built with Sass, so we're going to copy those down into our theme. So I'm going to paste that here. It's going to ask me if I want to add it to Git. I'm going to tell it no. And so now we've got this CSS directory with the style.css file.
So these other ones that you've added that are not being built, these are part of some libraries or something, which
some of them
we're
are
not customizing?
Some of them are. So like, for example, Font Awesome is obviously, you know, Font Awesome's library. But that's something that we already have in the core. So we'll probably get rid of this, but we'll play it by ear and see what happens.
Okay.
Bootstrap's another example of that. I guess this is Bootstrap 4 and not Bootstrap 3. So we might run into some trouble, but yeah, so that's the game plan. Some of these things are third party and aren't getting built by Sass. Everything that seems to be contained into this style.css.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to head to webpack. No, we've already updated that. We've already set webpack.mix to right into the CSS directory. So we're going to run yarn. And instead of running yarn dev, I'm going to run yarn watch. And I'll show you what this does in a second.
You're feeling confident now, right?
I am. Yeah, I know we're going to make it.
Nice.
Sweet. Okay. So now we've got this style.css file, and I was looking at it a second ago, and it definitely looks different. So I feel confident that this built properly and over what we had. I guess if we want to prove that I can, I'm going to not. So I want to show what exactly watch does, because I'm sure most people aren't familiar with this kind of workflow when it comes to these third-party assets. I guess not third-party, but when it comes to these CSS and JavaScript assets, the watch workflow is essentially listening for changes in the actual source files. And when it sees that one of the source files changed, it's going to rebuild the CSS just automatically for us. So I'm going to show what that looks like a little bit here. We're going to go to resources, Sass, and we're going to head into one of these things. Let's go into, I guess, project. And we're just going to add dot something random and put a rule in here. Some rule is some value.
Doesn't it need to be valid? Valid? Okay, interesting.
Nope. Yeah, and so we can see that it's kind of hard to tell, but this recompiled. If just to prove it, you can see it says 1874 here. That's the amount of time it took to actually recompile stuff, about 2 seconds. If I remove this rule now and save it, and we head back, we can actually see it compiling. But this time it took 3,719 milliseconds. So about 4 seconds. This Sass stuff is pretty slow to build.
It looks like it only builds the things that have changed. So if you have a huge project, it could be potentially faster.
Definitely, yeah. In this case, the way that this project is structured is they have this entry Sass file, and then in here they're importing a bunch of stuff. This isn't really like anything crazy. This is how people usually use Sass.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely if like breadcrumb was its own file, if blog was its own file, if these things were separated out into different builds, you're absolutely right. Wherein if I edited breadcrumb, it would only build breadcrumb. But since kind of everything's being built into one file, there's no difference.
Okay.
Okay. So where are we at? We've got the basics of our theme built. We've got the page theme set up. What we need to do is start building out some kind of page templates. And for now, we don't have to put too much in there. We're just going to create a new file. I'm going to make this one called default. And in here, I'm just going to say hello world.
Now, before you go too far, I know there's a common confusion between the, is it the page templates and the page themes? There's
No,
a confusion about, I can't remember what the two are, but in 5.7 and above, you've split out the content and the display a bit, yeah?
Right. So, yeah, there's a lot of nuances here. So just to paint the picture, we've got 3 ways that you can add a page to a site in concrete5. The first one is just kind of through the dashboard and as just a regular page, really no type, just default type, and just kind of willy-nilly slap whatever's there up and put content in it.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is with like single pages. So a single page would be something like usually dashboard pages or single pages. And the reason why you'd use a single page and not one of these willy-nilly pages is because you've got stricter requirements for the page path, for the page name, and then possibly for some of the functionality in the page itself. So a single page gives you the ability to have a controller that does work with your single page while it's rendering. So page types are essentially that for these willy-nilly pages, where you can add a willy-nilly page. You can say, hey, this isn't a home page type. This is actually a calendar page type. And then you can implement a controller for that page type that says, hey, if you're trying to render this page, get all the calendar dates or whatever you might want to do for that page type. So that lets you kind of give these willy-nilly pages that can be added anywhere the ability to have much more complex functionality, and it gives your developers much more control. So what we did in version 7 is we divorced the concept of styling the page from the concept of actually making it have that extra functionality. So now you can have a page that has one page type, and then any number of page templates. So that's where the confusion typically comes in. Page types aren't really something you often add with themes. They can be added with a theme in a package, but they won't be underneath that theme directory. Is my understanding. So whereas the page templates will all be kind of contained within the theme.
Okay, so a page type is, we're talking just functionality.
Mostly, yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got a default page template. I'm going to make a new one, and I'm going to call it home. And instead of hello world, we're going to say hello homes. Hello hams. Sweet. So now that we've got 2 page templates set up, we're going to install this theme.
And if you screw up, you can redo this, right?
Yeah, you can always uninstall it. And I mean, we really haven't done anything to this site at all. I could just throw away the database at this point and start over if I really needed to. But I am confident that I won't. But so you can see we're starting to install this theme, and it's already picked up the default.php file. It expects that default.php file. So that's going to be, you remember I said, these willy-nilly pages, you don't really have to choose a page template. It's going to use that default if you choose nothing. So we've added another page template called home. And when you install, it gives you the option to either add that page template with the theme or to not. So potentially you could add a new theme to your site and say, I don't really want to use that for my home page or whatever you might do. So here we definitely want to create the page template. So we're going to click OK. Now the last thing we are going to do is we're going to head back to the themes page, and we're going to activate this theme across our site. The effect that this is going to have when we go back to our home page, yeah, we see hello world. Now,
could you increase the zoom a little bit? There you go.
We'll have to do that with CSS.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the default template. You'll remember that we put hello world in the default template and hello hams in the home template. So what do you do to get the home page to have the home template, you ask? Well, the answer is we're going to head over to our sitemap, and we're going to click on our home, and we're going to say design and type. And over here it says, hey, what template do you want? And I'm going to just say home template. We can leave the page type as page. That's just the default page type. And then our theme is going to be Dreamers because we applied that to every page in our site. So save that. And now if we head back to our home page and refresh, we get hello hams. So this is partly why I say that in Concrete 5, you have complete control over your theme. Everything on the front end is essentially up to you. If we view the page source here, the only thing we're outputting is exactly what's in my template. So if I wanted my template to, output an XML or output, anything, I could make this output anything. So I don't want to output anything. What I do want to output is I want to output some basic kind of scaffolding and that style.css that we've built. I think this one's old.
Let me ask one question before you keep going. Is it possible? Is this an all or nothing thing? You're either picking the default or you're completely overwriting, or is it possible to just integrate some parts that you want to change but keep the rest from the default?
If you wanted to compartmentalize stuff, you can do that with elements, and definitely, blocks have their own styling and things like that.
Okay.
But no, if you're building a theme, like you are completely controlling how Concrete 5 is going to look, how it's going to, wrap its blocks and things like that. So, really, if you only want to modify bits and pieces, you're probably better off just building block templates at this point.
I see. Okay.
Okay. So the process that we're going to use here, since we already have a home template, we've already got this page over here using it, and I think I've adequately proved that. We can go to that template, the HTML template, and we can just copy out the index.html content. So I'm going to do that. Back into our theme. Okay. And I'm just going to paste that. And obviously, this is all HTML. This isn't exactly what we want, but this will work for right now. This is going to be how we start. Heading back to the browser, if we refresh, we should see OK CSS. No, we don't. I was thinking we might see OK CSS, but we don't.
The paths are probably hard-coded to the
exactly
root. Yeah.
Yep. So we got to go in and we got to change anything that's referring to a local CSS file to have this fancy view get theme path method before it. And so let's see if that actually does what we think it does, or if it gives us an error. Sweet. It did what we thought it did. So, this is another example of something that I just kind of know. I just know that there's this view get theme path. What I would have done if I didn't know how to do this is I would have gone into, again, I would have gone to the concrete directory, the themes directory, and looked at what Elemental does. And some of these files might not have what we're looking for. No, we do. So we do have some view get theme path example here. And this is essentially exactly what we're doing. Yeah, so that's what I would have done if I was confused and unsure what to do. I would have referred back to the Elemental theme, and that's kind of what I always do.
Okay. So the view is one of these global objects, which is available pretty much anywhere? Okay.
Not quite anywhere, but it's definitely available in this context.
Okay.
So I'm going to do this exact same thing to all of these files in here. Now that doesn't look right, but we'll just let it ride. We've got a bunch of JavaScript files to do this with. Oops, cannot resolve directory. Let me scroll here.
Where'd you copy that from?
No idea. Who knows what's in my clipboard?
Gotta be careful.
mostly plagiarism. How? Okay, we're doing this
That's
by hand.
interesting.
View, get theme path. That's it. Much faster. I think I'm copying this pop-up somehow. Maybe if you just click on it, it copies it or something. So that productivity features.
You definitely killed your productivity there. So it's definitely working.
That's how you know it works. All right. So we've added that to all of our files. Hopefully, if we refresh here.
That's looking closer. Yeah.
It's definitely getting closer. If we look here, all of our paths look right here. We have some images that we'll need to sort out. So let's take, I don't want to view source. What I want to do is I want to open up my developer console in my browser because when I click over here, what I'm going to see is a whole bunch of 404s. Why do you want to? I guess I could click on my console tab.
Yeah.
So this is an itemized list of everything that it thinks it can't find. So it looks like it can't find font awesome stuff. That's kind of expected. No jQuery. So all the JS files, which is kind of expected, and all of the images it looks like, plus font awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So let's make sure that we copy the rest of the stuff down. There's going to be image directory here, fonts, font awesome, and JS. So I guess all of these.
Okay. We do have one question coming in from Nick Ratering. He was noticing when you were fixing all the paths there that there's quite a few individual CSS and JavaScript files, and he's wondering why not just create one massive CSS and one massive JavaScript file. Is there any benefit for keeping those libraries and stuff separate?
Definitely there's some benefit. I can tell you the reason why we're not combining everything right this second is because that's not what they're doing.
Okay.
Another good reason to not do that is because a lot of these things are third party, and we don't necessarily want to be building in third party code into our stuff kind of directly.
Mm-hmm.
And, I can think of a reason why you would want to combine them. Maybe you think that like the round trip from the browser to your server is too long and having all these requests is a problem. And that's totally fair. The thing about that, though, is if you just enable HTTP2 in your web server, then it's not a problem. All of those requests go over one connection using multiplexing. So that's the way to go, if you're concerned about the multiple requests.
It's definitely becoming less of an issue as time moves forward. Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing that's been interesting to see, a lot of sites, instead of having these massive, monolith CSS files that they include everywhere, instead what they're doing is they're building these kind of site section specific CSS files.
Or modular. Yeah.
Yeah, well, not quite modular, wherein like you'd build one CSS file per page.
Oh, interesting.
So for example, that's what we did for the Cascadia PHP site, because we were using the AMP project, which required like 50 kilobytes or less of CSS, and that's insanely low.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's anything else other than the whole like request many request thing, feel free to let me know. I can answer maybe better.
Okay. Looks like that answered this question for now. But yeah, if anyone else has questions, please feel free to type them in and we'll try to squeeze them in.
Sweet. So we've got the JavaScript files added, but we're still seeing issues with all of the images.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make sure we are okay. It's just complaining that something's not defined. But yeah, we're just missing the images file.
Is there any way to, in your developer console, to increase the font size on that one too next time?
Let's find out. I'm sure it'll go back once I close it.
There you go.
Let's see.
That's huge.
Yeah, this is big, guys.
Oh, nice. Keeps it.
Yeah. Sweet. I'm going to forget about that and be infuriated. Okay, so we've added in the fonts, the images. What we need to do, that's interesting. Oh, I see.
Images and image. What's the difference there?
the images directory is being built by the Webpack, the mix whatever, the Laravel mix process,
Right.
whereas the image directory came down with the theme.
Oh, interesting.
So what we need to do in here is we need to make sure that any direct path to images is using this same view-get theme path. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to search and replace for quote image / and replace with quote that image / No, I'm going to turn off.
It's not regex.
Regular expressions. There we go. So let's see if that was enough.
Nice. Oh. Well,
sweet.
A little bit, yeah. Good.
Nice. Okay. So obviously this isn't what we want, right? We're logged into our website here. We can go to the dashboard, but when we go to the front end, we don't see any toolbar. We get all of this hard-coded content. I'm not selling apartments whatsoever. So this is close. We definitely have it into our concrete5 site, but there's clearly more stuff we've got to do. Looking at the time, I bet what we can do with our remaining time is I bet we can get the toolbar working, and I bet we can get a nice area for the main content. I'm not sure that maybe we can break this out into elements, but we might not be able to get this converted to a block just yet.
Yeah, I think at least getting it so that it looks like we're actually concrete5ized with the toolbar and stuff is a good step.
Agreed. So let's do that. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do what I just made it sound like I wasn't sure if I was going to do. I'm going to take the header and the footer, and I'm going to break those out into elements that we can kind of just include. So what that looks like is we're going to create a new directory. Actually, now that I think about it, I'm not sure what the right way to do this is with this theme. I think we are required to, if we have this theme under the application directory, I think our elements have to go up here in the application elements directory, which kind of breaks that whole, keep this thing kind of concise and packaged thing, but we'll just have to keep that in mind.
Well, I think in a later episode, we're going to focus more on how we can package it up. So that might be actually good to have it separated so we can see the difference between building it directly this way versus having it as an add-on.
Sure.
Or a theme.
Let's take a look at the elemental theme and see what they do, because that's going to be built the same way. No, they do have an element. Yeah. So forget
Never mind.
Just come, anytime you're confused, for real, always go to the elemental theme. That theme was built with this kind of stuff in mind, for it to be kind of a boilerplate, an example that you can kind of look to. So clearly for us, that saved us here.
Okay, that's good to know that that's sort of, built for not only basic styling, but also for pedagogical purposes.
Cool. So I added all these files and I cleared them out.
Okay.
So what we need to do is we need to make sure that these things are going to get included. The way that I'm going to do that is I'm just going to break out the footer first. I feel like the footer might be a little easier to break out. So I'm going to just take everything here. And you can see there's a footer tag. Can I collapse this? I don't know how to collapse it. No, I don't know how to collapse it with the presentation mode. So we're going to scroll till we see the top of that. There it is. Wasn't too hard. I'm going to copy, and then I'm going to paste that into this element here. So it's just that chunk, nothing else. That's all. Go back to the home template, and I think we're going to do, I'm not sure. Let's look at Elemental. Elemental's default is going to do this ink. So I wasn't sure if it was going to be view element or what it was going to be. It looks like it's this ink, and you don't have to echo it out. So we're going to copy that. We're going to go back to, back to our home template, and we're going to paste that. Sweet. So let's make sure that that actually worked. If I can get my gestures going. Okay. Cool.
So it'll work by not seeing any difference, right?
And I guess we can be a little bit more clear with that by going in. Oops, this is the wrong directory. Going in and deleting the content now and replacing with foo.
To prove that it's working.
Yeah, no one believes me around here. Yeah, and so clearly it's, yeah. Okay.
Just really quick, let me just interject that John the Fish has pointed out that there's also two other themes which are good starting points. There's Clonamental and Elemental Cloner. He notes that both of them provide good starting points
Nice.
in applications or packages.
Nice. Yeah, it's great to have that kind of stuff, especially built by the community, because, you know, Elemental is great, but, you know, I'd be wrong in saying that it was built recently. Elemental is relatively old, and any energy going into keeping these kinds of standards up to date is great by my book. So sweet.
Thanks, John.
Yeah. So last thing that we got to do with this footer business is we want to move anything that's kind of wrappery out of this and into footer bottom. The only reason why we do that is because it helps us as developers maintain this stuff a little better. So fully up to you what you want to split out. If anything, we could just leave this as is and go with it. But I definitely prefer having a footer and a footer bottom, just so
what is the intended distinction between those bottom and the top for the header?
It's easier to understand for the header, because a header, if you think about it, is more than just maybe navigation, right? A header's got to include the HTML boilerplate code too. So typically what you'll see, and what we'll see if we go into the elemental theme, is you separate these things based on whether they are actually display or whether they are just kind of, you know, I don't want to say configuration, but, you know, part of the actual HTML boilerplate. So if we look at elemental, what we'll see in the header is actually like a header tag, some actual HTML that's being outputted into the page. But if we go into header top, we see the main wrapper, the body tag, and then everything in the head tag.
I see.
Does that clear it up? It's
still so header top is like literally the HTML header plus, you know, the rest, but just header and just footer is the display header and footer for the end user.
And again, you know, there's really nothing to this that says you have to do it. We're just choosing to do it because that's kind of the paradigm.
Okay.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this. They've got, or I guess not this, sorry. We're going to copy this here, this ink element footer bottom, and we're going to paste that into our footer. Here, we're going to replace this business and move it into our footer bottom. Yeah, I personally like to keep all the assets in these bottom and top files. But yeah, up to you.
Nice.
So we'll save that. The last thing that you might have seen in the footer bottom on Elemental is that they've got this view element footer required. So this footer required is part of the whole toolbar business. Footer required adds in anything that we'll need to edit the page, anything that we'll need to, moderate content at all. So this needs to go last in our document before the body closing tag.
And just to reiterate what you said, this is what helps make it so that it's actually concretized or concrete5ized. Is that right?
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. So now that we've added this, I guess let's do both ends before we go back to the browser. We're going to do the header as well now. So we've got the footer, so that the footer, the template, the home template includes the elements/footer.php, and then the footer.php includes the elements/footer-bottom.php. So we've got this kind of daisy chained. Okay. So we're going to do the exact same thing we just did, but with the header. So I'm going to just put this at the very, very top. And it's going to be elements header. Oops. And then we're going to copy out all this business. You can see there's a header tag here. Here's the banner at the top. I don't think we want the banner. This almost does look like navigation still, though. But
I think that's content, though. That says, hello, we are a city.
yeah, so let's just grab up till this menu part end tag here and move that out. Oops. No. Skip.
What are you doing?
Ignoring updates and duties and all that. I accidentally added that to the header top. Let's do that to the header instead. And we're going to do the same thing here that we did with the footer, where, you know, maybe some of this header stuff will be in the header file, but all of the stuff that's more scaffolding is going to go in the header top. Sweet. So we'll need to have this business that includes the header top added to the header. I'm just using the old-fashioned copy paste. And the last thing that we need to do, since we have a footer required, we need to do the same thing with the header required. And that's going to be at the very bottom of our head tag.
Okay.
I'm going to say header required with lowercase. And since we've got all these annotations, let's just add one for this. Concrete5 stuff. That'll let us.
So don't delete it no matter what. Yeah.
Sweet. Okay. Now that we have this, we should have everything broken out, but we're not going to be able to edit it quite right just yet. So let me, if I can figure out how to get back to my browser, refresh, you'll see we have the toolbar.
Wow, cool.
But, you know, this header is below it. And once we scroll down, whoops, it gets covered. That's not.
Oh, interesting.
That's not right.
It does float, but
something ain't right here. So the problem, so we're running into two problems here. Now, the first problem is that we haven't given our theme a wrapper div. We need to give it some kind of element that's going to wrap around the whole thing, and that's going to have the proper classes so that this stuff gets pushed down below our toolbar. And the second thing that we're running into is this floating thing is most likely still going to be a problem afterwards. So we might have to do a little bit of CSS poking here. But maybe that's something we'll leave for the next episode. We'll see. So let's get this wrapper class going.
Okay.
So this is something that's actually going to benefit from us splitting out the footer bottom and the header top, because everything that we're going to have wrapped in our theme wrapper class is going to be contained in between these two files. So with that in mind, I can just say, here's going to be our div. I'm going to just give it a div wrapper class like that for now. I want to get rid of the closing tag just so that this kind of contains everything underneath it, you know. This is going to be the top bread of the sandwich, and we'll get the bottom bread added here. So this is our bottom. We're going to do here. The last thing is going to be a closing div for that div that we open in our header top. So you can tell.
So it's not going to include the footer required and stuff in that wrapper.
Correct.
Okay.
So now that we've got that, we're going to head back to the browser and make sure that that's actually being added. And we can see, yep, our wrapper class here. Of course, we don't want to give it that. It's going to be something different defined by concrete5. So we got to give it a chance to do that. And we'll do that by doing echo tag here. And we'll say echo out view get theme wrapper class, I think. Not 100% sure. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull out our handy dandy elemental theme, and we're going to go into the header top in here. And we can see, yep, oh, but it's not on
page wrapper. Oh, it's the collection.
Yeah, it's on the collection, and it's get page wrapper class. So we're just going to copy this as is, and we're going to head back to our own header top, and we're going to replace this. Is that right? Did I go to the wrong header top? I did go to the wrong header top. There we go. Place that. And so I don't like these PHP echo tags. We'll make that a short PHP echo tag. So now what we've done is we've wrapped all of our content, all of the body content in a div that's got a class that's defined by concrete5. So what ends up happening here is concrete5 puts a class in here that says, hey, don't mess with the toolbar, essentially. And that makes it so that the content kind of within this div doesn't bother the toolbar.
So if the toolbar ever changed dimensions in the future, that would handle it.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we refresh here and we see that our fix actually didn't fix it. Neither of these things are fixed.
It looks
So
like it's absolutely positioned or something. It's not.
we've got something else to debug here. We've also, you'll see we've got some blank space up here. We've got a few things to debug. We might just pick that up at the beginning of the next class.
Okay.
Let's make sure we do have our theme wrapper class here. And you can see that concrete5 is giving it several classes. It says
Increase the font size a little bit there. There you go.
Here's the line that we were looking at. It's given it 3 classes. So CCM page, page type page, and then page template home. So the value of this, the CCM page does the whole don't bother the toolbar business, but then these 2 things are for us to kind of work with. So anywhere that we've got a page wrapper class that has page type page, we know the page type of that page. And obviously the same thing is true for page template home. So if we had a sub page somewhere and we went there, we wouldn't see page template home. We'd see page template default or whatever it would be. But so that's kind of to illustrate how you might, style a page just kind of specifically to a template.
I see.
Yeah. So I think that is enough to chew for this episode. I definitely think that we have left this in an odd position, having this toolbar not quite working correctly. But that gives us something to start with next episode.
Yeah, I think it definitely demonstrates sort of, for me, the biggest hurdle is, getting to the stage where this stuff displays and it's actually, being served out of concrete5. It definitely has the feel that it's, made significant progress here. One more quick, I guess, sort of comment from Nick Radering is I guess back in the day when you were including those elements, you used to use the loader : element, and now you're using view : element. Is that loader's been deprecated then?
Yeah, almost anywhere that you're using loader, there's a better place, a better option. There are a few places where loader functionality has kind of just gone away because there's better, design patterns that you can use instead. But loader element is a good example of one that definitely has a parallel in the new API. And with this stuff, it's just the view element call. Since version 7, anything that is using that loader can likely benefit from being updated to use some of the newer stuff, like some of the facades and, if you have a variable available, like we did with that view variable, using something like that instead.
Okay, cool. Well, that makes sense to me, and thanks for everyone who's following along and asking questions. Questions from Nick Radering and John the Fish. Anyone else who has questions, you're probably not watching it live, so we can't answer them for you. We will be doing another show. What's our schedule? It should be the second week in July. Is that right? July 11th, I believe it is. Yeah.
I'll take your word for it. That sounds right to me.
According to my calendar, we'll be back July 11th, and we'll be taking this on to the next step, and I believe we'll probably be getting into some blocks by then. So yeah, I guess one thing that's going to be a result of today's lesson is you're going to commit these changes to the repo, and people can follow along in GitHub and offer comments or even pull requests, I guess, if someone has some idea how to make it better. But yeah, we're going to be doing this in public so that you can all follow along and see how these things are developed. And yeah, thanks for following along, and we look forward to your feedback. I can see John the Fish is typing something. I'll wait for just a second to see if it's a question.
I did just push up the changes from today. They're just listed as episode 2. And I think we'll keep that running as we go, try to name these commits and pushes against the episode that we cover. Nice. Or I guess that we do the work in.
All right. Well, it looks like John the Fifth isn't going to ask a question, so I think we'll just wrap it up there. And now he's typing again. I don't know. We're going to have to put a limit here somewhere. But yeah, thanks, Corvin. I really appreciate going over this with me. Like I said, I've worked with concrete5, in bits and pieces here and there, and I know how to jump in and do little fixes. But to go from zero to something that's looking like a real theme, I had no idea how to get to that stage. So it's been really enlightening.
Nice. Well, we're not there yet, but we'll get there. We'll get a lot farther in the next episode. And like you said, a lot of the main pain is just getting from zero to this spot, just breaking the inertia of getting something that was raw HTML to something that can be installed in a concrete5 site. So yeah, good content. I'm excited for the next one. I can't wait to get this thing actually looking nice and getting some blocks in there.
Yeah, for sure. And based on John the Fish's comment, which he just popped in there, we will publish a schedule further out in advance. We have been doing sort of, by the seat of our pants, but yeah, we'll do that. I'll try to get that done this week. We'll publish the schedule for all of next month for this and the town hall to keep people informed, so they don't get just a couple hours notice before we go live. And yeah.
And do keep in mind, we are doing this on a regular schedule. So this will happen every 2 weeks, unless we drop the ball. And I don't think we will. I think we're going to keep it going.
I think it's actually the second and fourth week of each month. So it's sometimes, depending on, the length of the month and the schedule, there will be a 2-week jump between classes, but it's always
right.
Yeah, sometimes. Depends on, the day the month starts. Sometimes there's 5 Thursdays in a month. Or sorry, sometimes there's, so that would make it the 5th Thursday and the 1st Thursday would be a 2-week break between the two.
Sounds good to me. But that won't come into play for the town halls, thankfully. Town halls are just every month, first Tuesday.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Sounds good. We'll wrap it up and call it a show.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Take care.